Hello there, David Taylor or Mr. Pelargonium back with another video on my own channel, my own Mr. Pelargonium channel here on YouTube. Now today I've got quite an interesting announcement to make. But yeah, Mrs. Pelargonium and I have actually been working on a project well, more or less since the end of January, although nobody on either this channel or the Pelargonium and Geranium Society channel would have a clue really about what's been going on. But the reason I'm announcing it is because some of the decisions that I'm going to be making with my plants are actually going to be based around what is going on. And the thing that is going to happen is that Mrs. Pelargonium and I are on the move again. If you go over to the Pelargonium and Geranium Society channel and look on videos in the latter part of 2018 and the early part of 2019, that's when we last took a move. We thought that it potentially would be our last move to this property here that we've got in southwest Oxfordshire. But as it goes, Mrs. Pelargonium changed her job. She still very much runs the purse strings of the family and continues to work. She's a little bit younger than me, we'll say that. And she changed her job to a location that is much further southwest than where we are now. And we basically made the decision in the sort of autumn winter of last year to move again, to up sticks and move again. And that now, after quite a long and protracted selling and buying process, we're finally at the point where we think we're probably coming to the end of it. And we are perhaps hopeful of moving or in around about a month to 6 weeks. I'm filming this on Wednesday the 10th of July. We certainly want to be in the new property that we are in the process of buying, certainly before the end of August. Now we are actually moving to what you would probably call a single story house overseas, but in the UK we call them a bungalow. And the garden is really quite large to the rear. It's one of the things that we I've always debated here. The garden perhaps went a bit too small here to where we were before, where I had the nursery. I mean, that was a huge, great, probably getting on for a quarter of an acre that had in total amount of land, and that became almost sort of too much. But here we went to almost the other extreme to a certain extent, and we wanted a bit more garden. And this bungalow that we're moving to has got a fantastic garden that's actually been relatively well maintained, it has to be said. And I will be getting a new glass house. I can say that. This one is going to be staying here with the property. I'm selling this with the property. It's actually been a good selling point, of course, because it's quite a good greenhouse. It's not that old. It's about, when did we put it in 2020? So it's 4 years old, this glass house is, and we put it in with the concrete floor. I did show a little bit of that on the Pelargonium and Geranium Society channel. But the one thing that will be going on with my own channel now, I will be showing a lot more of the intricacies of me going about putting in the hard landscaping for the new greenhouse and getting the new greenhouse installed. So that's going to be, really quite interesting and quite an exciting thing, certainly for this channel. And indeed for the Pelargonium Geranium Society channel, where I will only be really touching on it, because I really do like to keep that for just tutorials really. Unlike previously when we've moved, and it was to a certain extent relatively more personal, but now I've got my own channel here. I think all of the moving and all of the process of putting up the new greenhouse is much more appropriate for this channel. I'm relatively fortunate in that our son has actually just come back to live with us again, so he'll be able to help me out. He's a big, strong lad, so I'm certainly going to need his help when doing the hard landscaping for the new greenhouse. We're going to be on a little bit of a short time scale because typically it was arranged, well, getting on for almost a year ago now. But so Mrs. Pelargonium and I are actually going away on an overseas holiday for the first 2 weeks of October. So we're going to have to, make sure that we've got the greenhouse up realistically by then. I wouldn't want my plants to be still outside all during that first half of October, and indeed further into the month if the glass house isn't completed by that point. So I am going to be under a little bit of time pressure once we move. That's why we're really trying to push through moving in August, and earlier in August the better. Now I have obviously got a great number of plants outside currently anyway. You'll maybe see that I've really thinned down because after the Pelargonium Society show, I really got on with cutting my plants back because it was becoming clear just after the show that things were moving on with our selling and buying process of the house. So I really have moved on, and I've certainly cut back all of the show plants that I wanted to keep going forward. So they have all been cut back. They will now be in a process of being repotted, which I will do on the Pelargonium and Geranium Society channel. Of course, because once we move, all of these plants will have to stay outside for, well, certainly probably about 6 weeks, all through September while the new glass house is being put up. So they're going to have to be, toughened up a little bit. I mean, I always keep my glass house fully open, even in the cooler periods, such as we've had in the first part of July, actually, as it goes. But so, they're having to toughen up a bit. But yeah, everything's going to have to be outside once we've moved. So very basically during September, I am not going to be able to do some of the jobs that I would normally do in September, such as repotting, any sort of further cutting back. That's all going to have to be done before we move realistically, because all my time is going to be taken up with getting the new greenhouse installed done. So there's going to be a lot of work going on, certainly over the next month, to get my plants primed and ready for more or less being ignored for over a month. Obviously they won't be completely ignored, they'll be watered and fed, but they are going to have to toughen up and grin and bear it for a little while outside. But that's the one thing about pelargoniums. They are relatively tough as long as they don't get a hard frost on them. They're usually pretty decent. Yeah, so originally I did have quite grand plans for both this channel and the Pelargonium Geranium Society channel. But all of the work that's been going on in the background with organising the sale, which became very protracted, parts of the sales chain fell out and all the rest of it. I won't bore you with that. And indeed the purchase, we actually became involved in another property which actually fell through. I'm not going to go into the details of that either, but it's been a very long and protracted situation. So a lot of my time this spring and summer has been taken up in sorting out the move that we are now hopefully coming towards the end of. But yeah, I did have some quite grand plans with videos and shorts and all that kind of thing, but moving forward that can all come to fruition. But in the meantime, you're going to get some great videos of me moving all the plants, keeping them outside and building a new, much bigger greenhouse. The main thing that I will be looking at is getting something wider. If you cast your mind back to 2018 and prior, I used to have a 12.5 by 20 that was one of my former nursery glass houses. one of the smaller ones, because I used to have a really huge one. But I'm going to go back to getting a 12.5 foot wide glass house, which gives you much more scope for being able to move about in. My room in here has become completely clogged up. So there we are. I think that just about wraps this one up. I thought I'd just do the announcement now because a lot of the work that I'm going to be doing, particularly on the Pelargonium Geranium Society channel, is now sort of preparing for the move. So I couldn't any longer sort of hold it in, and I think it's more appropriate for me to get a bit more personal with the reasons for moving and all that kind of thing, and going through all the processes that we're going to need to be doing over the next month or so. So I'm going to keep that to this channel, and I'll be linking it from the Pelargonium and Geranium Society channel. So that just about closes this one off. So it's an exciting time coming up, and I hope you'll maybe come along for the ride, which is going to be really quite interesting, I think. So that's it from me today. Bye-bye for now.